Hello and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Speak Life podcast. We are so excited to have you with us for another amazing week. I am your host, MinisterPhoenix, alongside this beautiful and amazing woman right here. I know you were missing her last week. She's back, people.
Yes,
she is back.
I'm back. This is your co-host, the one and only Sheika. We are so excited that you're here to listen with us. Last week, my son Elisha was on the podcast, and this week we have a very, very special guest.
Very, very special guest. So I will let her introduce herself because I can't even wrap it all up in a good introduction.
So yeah.
Oh, thank you. So my name is Mischelle Saunders-Gottsch, and I am a wife and a mom, a Gigi, and a dog mama. And I live in the Kansas City area. I also am the CEO and founder of a nonprofit, and the name of the nonprofit is Altered Stories Ministry. And we help Christian women share their God stories so women around the world can hear them. I am also the chief storyteller host of the Altered Stories show. And this is just so exciting that I get
We're
to be
excited
here today
to have you. We are excited to have you. So if this is your first time listening to the podcast, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. You know those comments are how you join these conversations. So make sure you comment. And for all of my lovely digital podcast listeners who are like, I don't watch YouTube, we got something for you too. We are now on all these lovely digital podcast platforms. If you have Anchor, you can find us on Anchor. If you have Breaker, guess what? We're on Breaker. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Pocket Casts. We are on Radio Public, and we are on Spotify. If you just want to go to the gym and figure out what we're doing, go to the gym. Listen to the podcast. We are definitely on there. So come and check us out. Now, today we are so excited to have Mischelle with us. She is we're going to pull as much information as we can from her. I believe that she has some gems that we can really use to inspire people, to impact people, to help people in some of the situations that they may be going through. And if I was trying to figure out a good topic, like a good title for this episode, and I must admit I was having some trouble, but I think a good title for this would be careful where you put your faith. I think that would be a good one. Be careful
Drum roll.
with your faith. Now, for those of you who don't know Miss Mischelle, I'm going to let her just tell you a little bit about just her background, and then we are going to jump in from there. And I guarantee you will enjoy this and you will be blessed from what we are about to go into.
All right, take it away, Mischelle.
Okay, wow, this is awesome. I have the floor. Now, so a little bit about my background. I am a Christian, and I have been a Christian from the age of 5. And I also have a education from a Christian university, Colorado Christian University in Denver, Colorado. I also come out of corporate America, and I have worked in Fortune 500 companies in management leadership in all of those areas. And then I migrated into nonprofits, faith-based nonprofits, where I was able to use my gifts and talents in the business world and was able to serve in those ministries. In terms of my background, when it comes to my survivor story, I'm a childhood cult survivor, and I was in a cult, unfortunately, from the age of 7 up until I was 12. So I'm an overcomer And I'm also a person that perseveres. I'm determined. And I am a person that's incredibly positive. And I always try to see the blessings of things that I've had to come through, or, the struggles. And I come out of a military family. Both my parents were in the Air Force. I was born in Japan, but we moved to the United States. And what was exciting about the military is that I was able to live in a lot of different areas, but I also learned a lot about how to assert myself and how to get out there so I could meet other people. And so that created tremendous amount of, I would say you had to really be willing to give. You'd have to be willing to give, and get out of your box, your comfort zone. So that is a little bit about me in terms of my background. Of course, I got married, all those things, had my daughter, moved on. But in terms of my childhood cult survivor story, that is really an impacting story. And it led me to where I am today in leading Altered Stories Ministry and helping women share their stories, because I am very passionate. I'm a very passionate person about emotional health, emotional healing, women moving forward into all that God has them to move forward to, and to keep them going and helping them overcome, like I had to overcome being a childhood cult survivor, and enduring a lot of what I had to endure in my family, the chaos, the controls, the abuse, physical, sexual abuse, all of those things that I was subjected to, unfortunately, because of a leader that was dysfunctional, and a leader that knew how to prey on the weak, and a leader who really was all about his agenda and not God's.
With that, I always I remember when we were first talking, and just hearing your story and being in that situation, being a person of faith, I think sometimes we don't really understand firsthand. Some people don't really understand firsthand how strong faith can be. And when you're under leadership, and this could be in a church, this could be in any aspect of life, like how dangerous, in your opinion, how dangerous can it be when we put our faith in the wrong things?
Very dangerous. I mean, it can get you off the beaten track. It can destroy your entire calling and your life. It can affect so many areas in terms of your relationships, your esteem, your emotional health, so many different areas in terms of your growth progression as well. It can get you stuck. There's a lot of areas in my experience, what I've seen, and I saw my mom, because she was the one who made the decisions and subjected us to this very unhealthy group of so-called Christians. And I saw what it did to her, and how it stagnated her. It moved her into isolation, how it affected her esteem, how it damaged her relationship with her kids and my dad, how, she lost who her identity was, how, it affected even other areas in her life in terms of, her calling. So really important that people are really aware of who they subject themselves to and putting their faith in, because God is a jealous God and he wants us to put our faith in him.
And that's like a big thing, because it's easy when we see like leaders and when we see people who hold these high positions, and it's easy to get caught up in looking at the leader and forgetting who the leader is supposed to represent. And I feel like in those moments, it's like that much more important to have that strong foundation of knowing what it is you believe, who it is that you believe in, and why. Because when you have that alignment, it's like, all right, like is this really what God said? And then it's like, so you kind of have a better understanding of like, all right, maybe this is something that may be out of whack. And, being young and in that situation, was there a particular time when, you realized like, wait a minute, like something is just off about this? Or like, was there a moment where it just like was like, all right, well, I know what this is supposed to be, or I know what, Christianity is supposed to look like. I know what, true believers supposed to, represent. Like, was there that definitive moment where something happened, or like the light bulb just kind of flicked and you was like, no, something's not right in this situation, and something has to change?
Oh, absolutely. Not initially, because when my mom brought us into this home church and this group, it all seemed all wonderful, warm, welcoming. Plus, we had other friends that we had met, and we were all part of this community. And so it wasn't weird and too freaky either, because we really weren't attending, church. Well, we did attend a church. It was part of the Christian Missionary Alliance Church, and my mom was friends with the pastor, and I was in Sunday school and learned those things back in Providence, Rhode Island, when I lived there. But when we moved and my dad joined us from his assignment in Vietnam to when we moved to the States and we started attending this home church, I think the check for me was when I started seeing how he was humiliating other people in front of other people. I mean, there was a loving piece of what I saw in my former church, and this man was controlling. He wasn't loving. And so I think that was to me, even at the age I was probably closer to 8 or 9, when I started noticing those controls, the oppression, and, just the sermons. I mean, they were all around someone's actions that didn't really align with what he wanted everybody to be doing as a result of the controls that he was trying to, bring into what we were supposed to be doing, as the group members. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh no, yes it did. Because I always, whenever I think of, being able to identify things, I always think of, when Christ was saying, you can tell a tree by the fruit it bears, So
yes.
Like if this is something that is of God, then we should see those fruits that we would see of God. We should see that love, we should see that patience, that peace, that forgiveness, that we should see those things. And then when we start seeing fruit that just doesn't line up, it's like and that's one of the things that you said that I was like, yep. I was like, it still applies. The fruit wasn't there.
No, and my mother, she was a baby Christian and she grew up Catholic. So she never really was discipled. And so that was a big issue too. My dad did not go forward as the spiritual leader in the home. He had a bad experience in his church, and it soured him. And so he gave my mom liberties and freedoms to go forward, but she never really had, she found the Lord through Billy Graham, the Billy Graham Crusade.
Big
and
Billy Graham.
she was, and she was forever, changed, but she didn't have any discipling. So she, I don't think she went to the Word of God and started, looking at the fruits, and she was naive in areas. And I think it was all tied up in her emotions. Wow. That's the other thing. That's a biggie. So you can't always let your emotions drive you either.
Wow, oh man, could you say that one again?
I said you can't let your emotions drive your decisions and drive you, into, not good, not good.
Oh man.
That's awesome.
Although God created our emotions, man, he created them, but he never said, follow every single emotion that you have, discerning against the Word of God, be discerning.
That's awesome.
She is dropping gems, people. I hope y'all are taking notes as y'all are listening to this. Wow. Y'all should be taking notes. Have your notebooks out. Write some of this stuff down. Wow. This is good.
No, for real. So the next question, right, that we have for you, how did you deal with the trauma from what had happened to you?
I didn't do it well. I didn't right away. I didn't really realize the trauma I'd been through, honestly, and just, it took me a while. I started seeing signs of anger, which turned into rage against my mom. I mean, it was out of control, my rage, because I was so angry at my mom for what we had been subjected to, what I saw, what happened in our family. There was a lack of respect too. So, I suppressed a lot. I immersed myself into the freedom that I had as a result of being, in some sense of normalcy. And, I just, I guess, put myself into a place of, just, I'm going to focus on these things at school, and I'm going to focus on my achievements. I'm going to focus, on what I want to do, and then I started noticing not just the rage and the anger that I was experiencing, but I was depression a little bit and anxiousness, really anxiousness. And I was not trusting. I was so distrusting. And if anybody came near me or tried to control me, I would run the other way. And that manifested itself in my relationships. I didn't want to be close to anyone. And so I was just, I'm going to control my life. I'm going to be an achiever. I'm going to make things happen. And I did not like Christians.
No?
Oh, did I not like
that
Christians?
One should definitely be warranted.
Yeah, I did not, because to me, they were weak. Of course, I also wasn't in the Word of God the way I needed to be. God had to do a lot of work and healing on me through people. That's how God worked. He worked through people. Because it was people that really changed my whole understanding of God, as a result of what I endured and my brother and sister through this cult. It was their actions. And so God really had to do a number on me, but I had to start dealing with it. And it was through women's small support groups through my church. And it was through conversations that I had when I was brave enough to share with these different women that God put in my life, and a counselor. I had finally came to a place where I was almost having a breakdown, a nervous breakdown. And I had to sit down with a special stress management Christian counselor, and her and I went to it. And she was the one who just said, okay, guess what? You have been through quite a trauma. You need to work on this. We need to talk through these things. She made me go through all these exercises, all these prayer times, the word, it was a God thing. And I kept healing even after that, little things that God would bring to me, and I would just start crying, or I'd be at a conference and, I would just, the healings, there's a lot of emotional healing that God had to do on a heart change. So he pursued me.
Wow.
He pursued me.
Wow. You touched something that we talked about on the podcast about having the importance of having a therapist. And we talk about that a great deal because some people, especially people of color, we don't think that.
I was going to touch the therapy.
Yeah, we think therapies for the weak, but it's really is for the strong, to let you know that you can get healing through people. You need people who are professionals to help you in the areas that you're struggling in.
And I think that's a big thing with Christians also.
Yeah, Christians also.
I believe we believe that God can heal. We believe in divine healing and all those great things. But sometimes God will lead you to a counselor that will help you.
Yeah.
Yes, he will.
And I think that is one of the most underrated things that we as Christians, we don't really take advantage of. And I love how you said it. God used people to help you heal. God will give you some people and lead you to.
He will, friends. He will. He is such a great God.
Yeah.
He is.
Wow.
He is.
And he loves us so. And he doesn't, he sees past things, but he does know. And, I guess he knew that was the only way I was going to heal.
Yeah. Wow.
It's emotional for me. And even now, I just get all emotional about it.
It's just amazing.
It's so amazing. And I was hard. I was a very hard person. I was very hard, very determined. You're not going to get, I was hard inside. So he knew how to get into my heartstrings, and he does it.
He did it. Wow.
I feel like you already answered the next question I had for you. Because to me, you was like, man, I didn't like me some Christians. I was like, I'm really interested in knowing how you found faith in those moments, but then just hearing how God just worked through you. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes as Christians, and we talk about this in a few episodes, where it's like, sometimes we don't realize the power that comes from our story and the things that God has brought us through, because there are so many people who are going through things. And I think about my life, and then just hearing your life, I'm like, I probably shouldn't even complain about some of the stuff that I went through.
No, it's true.
But it's like when you see the power that God uses in the way that he can change around situations, and how you say, inside you were just hardened. It's like, and God can still use that and make it to a point where it's like you can look back and see where you were and be like, wow, look what God has done. Yeah. So when you get emotional, I see and I understand. I'm like, I get it.
There's times I'm talking about my story and I'm getting emotional because you've lived it, you've walked it, you've experienced it. So when you start sharing it, you're like, you remember and you think back on the goodness of God, and you're like,
yes,
it had not been for him, where would I be?
It's why we have to share our stories.
And I think that's important.
It's good for us.
It is.
I'm on this crusade now where I'm out sharing my stories on all these different podcasts and being asked. God is just opening up floodgates for me right now to be able to do this, because I just think he wants to bless me too.
Yeah.
You know, you bless others, but it's so powerful.
Yeah.
It is so powerful.
There's more than that. He don't always say God does not run out of blessings.
No, he doesn't, and we need blessings. We all need blessings. He knows how to encourage us too when we're stepping out in faith.
It is true. And I'm happy that in this season where God's opening up doors for you, that we were able to actually get you on the podcast to share your story, because I believe it is a very powerful story, and there are many people who will benefit from just hearing it, you know, because I feel like a lot of times we see where God has brought us from, and sometimes when it's not pretty, we kind of shy away from sharing. We're like, oh, but we don't want people to look at us a certain way, or we don't want people to think about us a certain way. But really, you have people who are like, I need to hear that. That was for me. Yeah. You know, I needed to see how God worked in your life, because then I know he can work in my life. You know, I need to see that he brought you out of, so I know he can take me out of my mess too. So I'm really excited about, you know, just hearing, you know, how he was able to take you from a place where it was like, these Christians, I don't know about these Christians, you know, to a point where it's like, you know, God, look what you've done. Yeah. You know, I think.
Yes. Oh, that's a miracle. I mean, unfortunately, some people, when they've been scared, you know, scathed and all those things, they just won't give God a chance, you know. But he knows how to break that hard heart. Oh yeah. You know,
specialized.
And he does. He knows how to break through. He really does. And I had a lot of people praying for me too. So that makes a big difference in that too. And of course, there was a calling ahead. And, you know, 62 episodes out there now of women who came through hard things. And God did work through so many different ways in their life, through people and other ways to speak to them, even if it's audibly, you know.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, wow. But God knew it. I could be real with him. I mean, I remember pounding on my steering wheel. Why, God? Why? Why did I have to go through this? You know, and that's what so many people do when they go through suffering and hard things. Or why aren't you changing? Why isn't it changing?
Like, why me? The why is,
you know, and God's saying,
the why
you should be saying, how, God, how?
Yeah, and why not me? It's true. It's so true. Wow.
So what we like to do when we were about to close, we like to always leave our guests with something, you know, some sort of something that when they're leaving, if they're going through some things, you know, it'll give them some inspiration to know that, you know, they can still make it. So I would ask you, if you could give someone some advice who may be in a situation that crippled their faith, because when I think about it, that would happen. That was something that could have easily crippled your faith, and you would
it did
have so many reasons to not even think about, you know, God and faith and believe. What? After all that, it's easy to get in those moments. So if you had someone who was in a situation and now they're on the verge, the faith is injured, you know, and possibly crippled, what could you tell them, or what would you tell them to help them to know that they can make it, or that they shouldn't let go of that, you know?
You know, I would just say, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't. Please understand that we live in a broken world, and God this wasn't his plan. He did not want people to, you know, hurt other people. I mean, when sin came in through Adam and Eve, it created a separation from God. And unfortunately, evil came in, and that, you know, God's a loving God, And he didn't want that. It happened. He gave man free will. And when you do have, you exist in a world with people who are in evil, some inherently evil without God, people can be really, don't give people power over your life. Okay. I'm just going to say, if you don't let it go. And if you don't, I can only say I didn't want to give this cult leader power over my life. And I did not want him to, I didn't want to carry all of that forward, and you have to, at some point, you have to recognize and realize that even though your faith has been injured and things have happened or transpired for whatever reasons, that was never the intent. God never intended. These things, unfortunately, suffering and people, these things happen. And sometimes you're a victim, and just be the victory, get victory over being a victim.
Get victory.
And that's what I'm going to say.
Get victory over being a victim.
Wow.
That is good.
This is powerful.
I have really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah,
I have. I know, and what tends to happen is the minute the episode's over, I'm gonna be sitting there like, oh my gosh, I should have asked her so many more questions.
But do you have
it was so good?
Want to share
that we didn't ask? Oh my gosh.
Do you have anything that you want to share?
So many gems in there. So many gems in there.
Oh, geez. Just, golly, you guys have really gone deep and asked a lot of questions. But I do want to say this. I have an episode, it's episode 14 on my podcast, and it is, you can have access to it on my website, www.alteredstoriesministry.org, and I'll make sure you get that too, Kenneth.
Yeah.
But one of the podcast episodes is about my story, and I have a mental health Christian counselor who interviews me, and we talk through the mental health aspects. I really say, do go out and listen to that, because there's so many nuggets in that too. And you can really, it kind of helps on those that have a lot of questions, or there might be gaps, or, it brings in more information and details, which I think is beneficial, for understanding why I am who I am today, and the whole healing around, and the trauma and the chaos and all those things. So
definitely,
I just want to mention that.
Have that link in there. That link will be in the description. We will have Michelle's link in there to her website and all things Michelle. It has really been a great time having you on the podcast.
Good.
Oh, you have another question?
Yeah,
more.
I'm not sure if it missed me, or if I didn't hear it. But so I don't know if your parents are still alive, but are they still alive, and what are your relationship like now?
Okay, that's a good question. Today is my mother's birthday, and she's in heaven with Jesus. She's in heaven with Jesus. Okay, so I'm honoring her today, and this is such a blessing to be here. Nice. Yeah. My relationship with my mother was very, very, it took a long time to bring healing. And we did heal, and she, I think, had the blessing of being able to have my baby brother late in life, and she was no longer affiliated with that group, and my parents had gone through some healing in their relationship. So God gave her a second chance in her family with my baby brother, who was not subjected to any of that.
Oh, nice.
And so that was a blessing. And I think that helped my mother through the healing process, even though she still had a lot of healing she needed to go through. But we eventually, especially after I had my daughter, we were relating more, and it was around motherhood, and, that helped I think that helped. My dad, who is 88, is still living. He's growing in his Christianity.
Oh, nice.
He has remarried. And he is, I think he's healing. I think he is going through the healing process right now. Okay. And he's starting to be drawn in to the things of God. And I think he's very curious about what I'm doing in the ministry. My mother loved this. That's the thing. My mother believed in what I was doing in my podcast ministry in the ministry. She wanted me to do this. She was so excited. And I think she saw the benefit in how important it is for women to heal. Because if they don't, they hurt their families. They hurt others. They don't go forward in their life the way they should. And I want to see women walk in freedom, the freedom that they can have through Jesus Christ.
Ooh. Amen. Ooh.
Amen. That sounds like a powerful ministry.
Yes.
It really does. And I'm excited.
It's transformational.
It sounds like
to be on your podcast.
It sounds like it.
Oh, girl, we got to get you on there.
It really does sound like you are doing what God has called you to do, and there will be many, many women who will benefit from it, and not only just them, but their
husbands,
families,
their kids,
their
communities. There's a lot there.
You are hitting generations with the work that you are doing, so it is amazing, and I'm just happy that we got you on. I am.
Well, hey, ScaleX.ai is the software that integrated into Sales Navigator, which got me to you. Big shout out to Chad Burmeister.
Shout out to Chad.
Go Chad. And I told him I would do some promo for him.
Shout out to you, Chad.
That's how we connected. God used Chad. I was on his podcast. So it is those things. God knows how to connect.
God knows how to do
God connections are the best.
I may not know you, but God knows you.
He does. He does. Yes.
But this is a blessing.
This was amazing.
Thank you.
This was really amazing. And I like I said, I'm excited to see what God is doing in your life through this ministry, through this podcasting, through reaching these women and helping them to heal, because as I said, you are touching generations. As we always say this when we're leaving, we say, remember, death and life is in the power of your tongue. So make sure you speak life. For all of our listeners, we thank you guys for coming out. I have to do a quick plug on the book. Don't forget to check out the book, When Three Roads Collide. And y'all can find that anywhere.
And it's a memoir of God's grace.
Yeah, you heard a little bit about Miss Michelle's life. You can come read a little bit about our life. Her links will be in the description so you can find out everything. Go check out episode 14. Episode 14 on the podcast. We will have the links in the description. We appreciate you guys coming out and listening to us for another episode. And we will see you soon. God bless you.